Hello, good Omens fans. This is Lowell here, and we're going to read where we left off. If you have a book there, go to page 21. And, well, without much more ado, I'm going to start reading from the nice little font that they did for the next paragraph that I explained at the end of last video. I did say last video, I think at the very end, I might have said page 30, but I was mistaken. Just pay attention to the description of the other video if if you're confused. But it doesn't matter, and well, let's start. Crowley, somewhere west of Amersham, hurtled through the night, snatched a tape at random, and tried to wrestle it out of its brittle plastic box while staying on the road. The glare of a headlight proclaimed it to be Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Soothing music, that's what he needed. He rammed it into the blowpunct. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit! Why now? Why me? He muttered. I really don't remember what voice I put for him, but as the familiar strains of Queen washed over him, and suddenly Freddie Mercury was speaking to him. Because you've earned it, Crowley. Crowley blessed under his breath. Using electronics as a means of communications had been his idea, and Below had, for once, taken it up and, as usual, got it dead wrong. He'd hoped they could be persuaded to subscribe to Cellnet, but instead they just got into whatever it happened to be that he was listening to at the time and twisted it. So basically they used the voices of things that he was listening to. Crowley gulped. Thank you very much, my lord, he said. I have great faith in you, Crowley. Thank you, lord. This is important, Crowley. I know. This is the big one, Crowley. Leave it to me, lord. That is what we are doing, Crowley, and if it goes wrong, then those involved will suffer greatly. Even you, Crowley. Especially you. Understood, lord. Here are your instructions, Crowley. And suddenly he knew. He hated that. They could just as easily have told him. They didn't suddenly have to drop chilly knowledge straight into his brain. He had to drive to a certain hospital. I'll be there in 5 minutes, lord. No problem. Good. I see a little silhouette of a mess. And goes off with Bohemian Rhapsody, which I can't sing, so. Crowley thumped at the wheel. Everything had been going so well. He'd had it really under his thumb these few centuries. That's how it goes. You think you're on top of the world, and suddenly they spring Armageddon on you. The Great War, the last battle. Heaven versus hell. 3 rounds, 1 fall. No submission. And that'd be that. No more world. That's what the end of the world meant. No more world. Just endless heaven, or, depending who won, endless hell. Crowley didn't know which was worse. Well, hell was worse, of course, by definition. But Crowley remembered what heaven was like, and he had quite a few things in common with hell. You couldn't get a decent drink in either of them, for a start, and the boredom you got in heaven was almost as bad as the excitement you got in hell. But there was no getting out of it. You couldn't be a demon and have free will. Gee. I forgot which part of Bohemian Rhapsody that is, so I can't sing it because I don't remember the tone. But well, at least if it wouldn't be this year, he'd have time to do things, unload long-term stocks for a start. He wondered what would happen if he just stopped the car here on this dark and damp and empty road and took the basket and swung it round and round and let go and... Something dreadful, that's what. He'd been an angel once. He hadn't meant to fall. He just hung around with the wrong people. Just Lucifer and the guys. The Bentley plunged on through the darkness. Its fuel gauge pointed to zero. It had pointed to zero for more than 60 years now. It wasn't all that bad being a demon. You didn't have to buy petrol, for one thing. The only time Crowley had bought petrol was once in 1967 to get the free James Bond bullet hole in the windscreen transfers, which he rather fancied at the time. On the back seat, the thing in the basket began to cry. The air raid siren wail of the newly born. High, wordless, and old. It was quite a nice hospital, thought Mr. Young. It would have been quiet, too, if it wasn't for the nuns. He quite liked nuns. Not that he was a, left footer or anything like that. No. When it came to avoiding going to church, the church he stolidly avoided going to was St. Cecil's and All Angels. No nonsense C, no nonsense C of E. And he wouldn't have dreamed of avoiding going to any other. All the others had the wrong smell, floor polish for the low, somewhat suspicious incense for the high. Deep in the leather armchair of his soul, Mr. Young knew that God got embarrassed at that sort of thing. Oh, she would. But he liked seeing nuns around, in the same way that he liked seeing the Salvation Army. It made you feel that it was all right, that people somewhere were keeping the world on its axis. This was his first experience of the Charing Order of St. Beryl, however. There's a little asterisk, and I'm going to read it. It's half a page, so I can skip it. Saint Beryl Articulatus of Krakow, reputed to have been martyred in the middle of the 5th century. According to legend, Beryl was a young woman who was betrothed against her will to a pagan Prince Casimir. On their wedding night, she prayed to the Lord to intercede, vaguely expecting a miraculous beard to appear, and she had in fact already laid in a small ivory-handled razor, suitable for ladies, against this very eventuality. Instead, the Lord granted Beryl the miraculous ability to chatter continually about whatever was in her mind, however inconsequential, without a pause for breath or food. According to one version of the legend, Beryl was strangled by Prince Casimir 3 weeks after the wedding, with their marriage still unconsummated. She died a virgin and a martyr, chattering to the end. According to another version of the legend, Casimir bought himself a set of earplugs, and she died in bed with him at the age of 62. The Chattering Order of St. Beryl is under a vow to emulate St. Beryl at all times, except on Tuesday afternoons for half an hour when the nuns are permitted to shut up and, if they wish, to play table tennis. Deirdre had run across them while being involved in one of her causes, possibly the one involving lots of unpleasant South Americans fighting other unpleasant South Americans, and the priest egging them on instead of getting on with proper priestly concerns, like organizing the church, cleaning Rhoda. Unpleasant South Americans. I don't know if that's racist. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. The point was, nuns should be quiet. They were the right shape for it, like those pointy things you got in those chambers Mr. Young was vaguely aware your hi-fi got tested in. They shouldn't be, chattering all the time. He filled his pipe with tobacco. Well, they called it tobacco. It wasn't what he thought of as tobacco. It wasn't the tobacco you used to get. And wondered reflectively what would happen if you asked the nun where the gents was. Probably the Pope sent you a sharp note or something. He shifted his position awkwardly and glanced at his watch. One thing, though. At least the nuns had put their foot down about him being present at the birth. Deirdre had been all for it. She'd been reading things again. One kid already, and suddenly she's declaring that this confinement was going to be the most joyous and sharing experience two human beings could have. That's what came out of letting her order her own newspapers. Mr. Young distrusted papers whose inner pages had names like lifestyle or options. Well, he hadn't got anything against joyous sharing experiences. Joyous sharing experiences were fine by him. The world probably needed more joyous sharing experiences, but he had made it abundantly clear that this was one joyous sharing experience Deirdre could have by herself. And the nuns had agreed. They saw no reason for the father to be involved in the proceedings. When you thought about it, Mr. Young mused, they probably saw no reason why the father should be involved anywhere. He finished thumbing the so-called tobacco into the pipe and glared at the little sign on the wall of the waiting room that, for his own comfort, he would not smoke. For his own comfort, he decided, he'd go and stand in the porch. Disclaimer, everyone smokes in this book. If there was a discreet shrubbery for his own comfort out there, so much the better. He wandered down the empty corridors and found a doorway that led onto a rain-swept courtyard full of righteous dustbins. He shivered, cupped his hand to light his pipe. It happened to them at a certain age, wives. 25 blameless years. Then suddenly they were going off and doing these robotic exercises in pink socks with their feet cut out, and they started blaming you for never having had to work for a living. It was hormones or something. Oh shit. A large black car skidded to a halt by the dustbins. A young man in dark glasses leaped out of the drizzle holding what looked like a carry-cot and snaked toward the entrance. Mr. Young took his pipe out of his mouth. You've let your lights on, he said helpfully. The man gave him a blank look of someone to whom lights are the least of his worries and waved a hand vaguely toward the Bentley. The lights went out. That's handy, said Mr. Young. Infrared, is it? He was mildly surprised to see that the man did not appear to be wet, and that the carry-cot appeared to be occupied. Has this started yet? Said the man. Mr. Young felt vaguely proud to be so instantly recognizable as a parent. Yes, he said. They made me go out, he added thankfully. Already? Any idea how long we've got? We, Mr. Young noted. Obviously a doctor with views about co-parenting. I think we were, getting on with it, said Mr. Young. What room is she in? The man said hurriedly. Oh my god. This is where it starts. What room is she in? Said the man hurriedly. We're in room 3, said Mr. Young. He patted his pockets and found the battered packet which, in accord with tradition, he had brought with him. Would we care to share a joyous cigar experience? He said, but the man had gone. Mr. Young carefully replaced the packet and looked reflectively at his pipe. Always in a rush, these doctors, working all the hours God sent. Ironic. Ooh, okay. It's a journey, so I gotta prepare. For those who haven't read Good Omens yet, there is a long thing that's about to happen that's it's just so long and so confusing. So I will try not to comment during this. Please pay attention. There's a trick they do with 1 pea and 3 cups that is very hard to follow, and something like it, for greater stakes than a handful of loose change, is about to take place. The text will be slowed down to allow the sleight of hand to be followed. Miss Deirdre Young is giving birth in delivery room 3. She's having a golden-haired male baby we will call Baby A. The wife of the American Cultural Attaché, Miss Harriet Dowling, is giving birth in delivery room 4. She's having a golden-haired male baby we will call baby B. Sister Mary Loquacious has been a devout Sister Mary Loquacious has been a devout Satanist since birth. She went to Sabbat school as a child and won black stars for handwriting and liver. When she was told to join the Chattering Order, she went obediently, having natural talent in that direction, and, in any case, knowing that she would be among friends. She would be quite bright if she was ever put in a position to find out, but long ago found that being scatterbrained, as she put it, gave you an easier journey through life. Currently, she is being handed a golden-haired male baby we will call the Adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness. Watch carefully. Round and round they go. Is that him? Said Sister Mary, staring at the baby. Only I'd expect funny eyes, red or green, or teensy-weensy little hoofykins, or a little tail. She turned him around as she spoke. No horns either. The devil's child looked ominously normal. Yes, that's him, said Crowley. Fancy me holding the Antichrist, said Sister Mary, and bathing the Antichrist and counting his little toesy-woesies. She was now addressing the child directly, lost in some world of her own. Crowley waved a hand in front of her wimple. Hello? Hello? Sister Mary. Sorry, sir. He's a little sweetheart, though. Does he look like his daddy? I bet he does. Does he look like his little daddy Watkins? No, said Crowley firmly. And now I should get up to the delivery rooms if I were you. Will he remember me when he grows up, do you think? Said Mary wistfully, sidling down with the corridor. Pray that he doesn't, said Crowley, and fled. Sister Mary headed through the nighttime hospital with the Adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness, safely in her arms. She found a bassinet and laid him down in it. He gurgled. She gave him a tickle. A matronly head appeared around the door. It said, Sister Mary, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be on duty in room 4? Master Crowley said, just glide along, there's a good nun. Have you seen the husband anywhere? He's not in the waiting room. I've only seen Master Crowley, and he told me... I'm sure he did, said Sister Grace voluble firmly. I'd suppose I'd better go and look for the wretched man. Come in and keep an eye on her, will you? She's a bit woozy, but the baby's fine, Sister Grace paused. Why are you winking? Is there something wrong with your eye? You know, Sister Mary hissed archly. The baby's the exchange. Of course, in good time. Well, we can't have the father wandering around, can we? Said Sister Grace. Not telling what he might see. So just wait here and mind the baby. There's dear. She sailed off down the polished corridor. Sister Mary, wheeling her bassinet, entered the delivery room. Mrs. Jones was more than woozy. She was fast asleep, with the look of determined self-satisfaction of someone who knows that other people are going to have to do the running around for once. Baby A was asleep beside her, weighed and name-tagged. Sister Mary, who had been brought up to be helpful, removed the name-tag, copied it out, and attached the duplicate to the baby in her care. The babies looked similar, both being small, blotchy, and being sort of, though not really, like Winston Churchill. Now, thought Sister Mary, I could do with a nice cup of tea. Most of the members in the convents were old-fashioned Satanists, like their parents and grandparents before them. They'd been brought up to it, and weren't, when you got right down to it, particularly evil. Human beings mostly aren't. They just get carried away by new ideas, like dressing up in jackboots and shooting people, or dressing up in white sheets and lynching people, or dressing up in tie-dye jeans and playing guitars at people. Offer people a new creed with a costume, and their hearts and minds will follow. Anyway, being brought up as a Satanist tended to take the edge of it. It was something you did on Saturday nights, and the rest of the time you simply got on with your life as best as you could, just like everyone else. Besides, Sister Mary was a nurse, and nurses, whatever their creed, are primarily nurses, which had a lot to do with wearing your watch upside down, keeping calm in emergencies, and dying for a cup of tea. She hoped someone would come soon. She'd done the important bit. Now she wanted her tea. It may help to understand human affairs to be clear that most of the great triumphs and tragedies of history are caused not by people being fundamentally good or fundamentally bad, but by people being fundamentally people. There was a knock at the door. She opened it. "Has it happened yet?" asked Mr. Young. "I'm the father, the husband, whatever. Both." Sister Mary had expected the American cultural attaché to look like Blake Carrington or J.R. Irwin. Mr. Young didn't look like any American she had ever seen on television, except possibly for the avuncular sheriff in the better class of murder mystery. Um, Asterisk? Or note? With the little old lady as a sleuth, and no car chases unless they're done very slowly. He was something of a disappointment. She didn't think much of his cardigan either. She swallowed her disappointment. "Oh, yes," she said. "Congratulations. Your wife is asleep. Your lady wife's asleep. Poor pet." Mr. Young looked over her shoulder. "Twins," he said. He reached for his pipe. He stopped reaching for his pipe. He reached for it again. "Twins? No one said anything about twins." "Oh, no," said Sister Mary hurriedly. "This one's yours. The other ones are someone else's. Just looking after him till Sister Grace gets back." "No," she reiterated, pointing to the Adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness. This was definitely yours, from the top of his head to the tip of his hoofy woofies, which he hasn't got," she added hastily. Mr. Young peered down. "Ah, yes," he said doubtfully. "He looks like my side of the family. All, present and correct, is he?" "Oh, yes," said Sister Mary. He's a very normal child," she added. "Very, very normal." There was a pause. They stared at the sleeping baby. "You don't have much of an accent," said Sister Mary. "Have you been over here long?" I I said I wasn't going to comment anything, but now I feel self-conscious about not giving them accents. Oh well. About 10 years," said Mr. Young, mildly puzzled. "The job moved, you see, and I had to move with it." "It must be a very exciting job, I always thought," said Sister Mary. Mr. Young looked gratified. Not everyone appreciated the more stimulating aspects of cost accountancy. "I expect it was very different when you were before. Where you were before," Sister Mary went on. "I suppose so," said Mr. Young, who never really thought about it. Luton, as far as he could remember, was pretty much like Tatfield. The same sort of hedges between your house and the railway station. The same sort of people. "Taller buildings, for one thing," said Sister Mary, desperately. Mr. Young stared at her. The only one he could think of was the Alliance of Leicester offices. "And I expect you to go to a lot of garden parties," said the nun. Ah, he was on firmer ground here. Deirdre was very keen on that sort of thing. "Lots," he said with feeling. "Deirdre makes me jam for them, you know, and I normally have to help with the white elephant." This was an aspect of Buckingham Palace society that had never occurred to Sister Mary, although the pachyderm fitted right in. I expected her to tribute, she said. I read where these foreign pot. I read where these foreign potentates give her all sorts of things. I'm sorry? I'm a big fan of the royal family, you know. Oh, so am I, said Mr. Young, leaping gratefully onto this new ice flow in the bewildering stream of consciousness. Yes, you knew where you were with the royals. The proper ones, of course, who pulled their weight in the hand-waving and bridge-opening department. Not the ones who went to discos all night long and were sick all over the paparazzi. No, it is possibly worth mentioning at this point that Mr. Young thought that paparazzi was a kind of Italian linoleum. Oh god. That's nice, said Sister Mary. I thought you people weren't too keen on them, what with revolution and throwing all those tea sets into the river. She chattered on, encouraged by the order's instructions that members should always say what was in their minds. Mr. Young was out of his depth and too tired now to worry about it very much. The religious life probably made people a little odd. He wished Mrs. Young would wake up, that one of the words in Sister Mary's wittering struck a hopeful chord in his mind. Would there be any possibility of me possibly being able to have a cup of tea, perhaps? He ventured. Oh my, said Sister Mary, her hand flying to her mouth. What am I thinking of? Mr. Young made no comment. I'll see to it right away, she said. Are you sure you don't want coffee, though? There's one of those vendable machines on the next floor. Tea, please, said Mr. Young. My word, you really have gone native, haven't you? Said Sister Mary gaily, and she bustled out. Mr. Young, left alone with one sleeping wife and two sleeping babies, sagged onto a chair. Yes, it must be all that getting up early and kneeling and so on. Good people, of course, but not entirely compos mentis. He'd seen a Ken Russell film once. There had been nuns in it. There didn't seem to be any of that sort of thing going on, but no smoke without fire, and so on. He sighed. It was then that baby A awoke, and settled down to a really good wail. Mr. Young hadn't had to quiet a screaming baby for years. He'd never been much good at it to start with. He'd always respected Sir Winston Churchill, and patting small versions of him on the bottom had always seemed ungracious. Welcome to the world, he said wearily. You get used to it after a while. The baby shut its mouth and glared at him as if he were a recalcitrant general. Sister Mary chose that moment to come in with the tea. Satanist or not, she'd also found a plate and arranged some iced biscuits on it. They were the sort you only ever get at the bottom of certain tea time assortments. Mr. Young's was the same pink as a surgical appliance. It had a snowman picked out on it in white icing. I don't expect you normally have these, she said. They're what you call cookies. We call them biscuits. Mr. Young had just opened his mouth to explain that yes, so did he, and so did people in Luton, when another nun rushed in, breathless. She looked at Sister Mary, realized that Mr. Young had never seen the inside of a pentagram, and confided herself to pointing at baby A and winking. Sister Mary nodded and winked back. The nun wheeled the baby up. As methods of human communication go, a wink is quite versatile. You can say a lot with a wink. For example, the new nun's wink said, "Where the hell have you been? Baby B has been born. We're ready to make the switch. And here's you in the wrong room with the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness, drinking tea. Do you realize I've nearly been shot?" And as far as she was concerned, Sister Mary's answering wink meant, here's the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness. And I can talk now because there's this outsider here. whereas Sister Mary, on the other hand, had thought that the orderly's wink was more on the lines of, "Well done, Sister Mary, switched over the babies all by herself. Now indicate to me the superfluous child, and I shall remove it and let you get on with your tea with His Royal Excellency, the American culture." And therefore her own wink had meant, "There you go, dearie. That's baby B. Now take him away and leave me to chat to His Excellency. I've always wanted to ask him why they have those tall buildings with all the mirrors on them." The subtleties of all this were quite lost on Mr. Young, who was extremely embarrassed at all this clandestine affection and was thinking, "That Miss Russell, he knew what he was talking about, and no mistake." Homest. Sir Mary's error might have been noticed by the other nun had not she herself been severely rattled by the Secret Service man in Miss Stowling's room, who kept looking at her with growing unease. This was because they had been trained to react in a certain way to people in long flowing robes and long flowing headdresses, and were currently suffering from a conflict of signals. Humans suffering from a conflict of signals aren't the best people to be holding guns, especially when they've just witnessed a natural childbirth, which definitely looked an un-American way of bringing new citizens into the world. Also, they'd heard that there were missiles in the building. Mrs. Young stared. Have you picked a name for him yet?" said Sister Mary archly. Said Mr. Young. "Oh, no, not really. If it was a girl, it would have been Lucinda after my mother, or Germaine. That was Daisy's choice." Wormwood's a nice name," said the nun, remembering her classics. "Or Damien. Damien's very popular." And after 32 minutes of recording, we're done with this new part. No, we didn't finish what I thought we would finish. It's way longer than I expected. We just read from page 21 to page 35. So, again, if you have a book, put your marker in page 35. And, well, to recapitulate, we just saw the little switch between the babies, although it's not yet done. And we saw that they basically screwed it up. Now we'll see what happens next in the next video. Like if you like this video, and if you want more, well, you can subscribe if you want, or just save the playlist. And bye!